welcome to episode 30 of Missile Industries Ford Falcon 351 Krusty Wagon project. Now, today's a Friday, and this is the third part of my three-part muffler saga, and hopefully this video will end with a startup with the new exhaust system and the music that it makes. So I've said that out loud, and obviously if this video has been posted on YouTube and I'm stating that at the start, then everything must work out okay. Otherwise I wouldn't have bothered to post it. So the plan for this episode is to weld everything up, get everything hung properly, put the gaskets on the extractors, bolt it all together, start it up, hear it running, give myself a high five for a job well done, and then move on to the next thing. Not sure what that is yet, but I'm working on it. So as I just stated, it's a Friday, so that means I've got 3 days to get this job done before I need to post this. Actually, you're going to see last weekend's video this weekend because I still didn't manage to finish that one last weekend either. So, in summary, I've got 3 days to finish this exhaust system before I move on to something else. So that's my plan. These 3 days, finish this exhaust system. I should be able to do that, right? So yesterday late in the afternoon, after I'd mowed the lawns, I thought I'd whack a couple of pipe flares onto the back of the merge pipe exhaust system, and one of them went on okay, but the other one I stuffed up and then almost set myself on fire. So I decided that was that. I was going to go inside and have dinner. So the merge pipe exhaust has got to come back out again so I can properly tack those fittings on before I start repositioning the rear section of the pipes to see how it's all going to hang. So theoretically those should slip in to those flared pieces I've welded onto the redback mufflers, and I can use the exhaust hangers to locate and clamp those rear sections, and then all I have to do is figure out how to hang the rear sections from the back of the car. One of them is going to be pretty straightforward because it's got the hanger sitting right there ready to go. The other one I'm going to have to get creative with to figure out how I'm going to do it, because there's no left side exhaust hanger mount at the rear of the car. So those are the pipes as they sit on my axle stands, and I don't really think they come out far enough, and they certainly won't come out far enough by the time I fit those into the merge pipe part of the exhaust. So there will be more cutting and shutting, I'm sure. Progress report. As you can see down here, I've welded my reproduction exhaust hangers directly to those mufflers because that's what lent itself to doing after I refitted the exhaust again. So the brackets basically hung down right underneath the lip of these mufflers, so I just had to trim the bracket up and butt weld them on with lots and lots of amps to get good penetration, and I think it's worked. What I should do now is reinstall and see if this is actually going to work out. See if I have my clearances and everything lines up. Right, exhaust is bolted up again, bolted up firmly to the flanges for the extractors, and the hangers are bolted up as well. Now it's time to let this jack down and see how much sag we're going to get. None, no sag. It is pretty much, it is where it is, and that's great news, because I was concerned there was going to be some kind of droop. That looks pretty damn good. There isn't really much movement in that at all. So hooray! I'm claiming that as a success. I better have a quick feel around to make sure nothing's touching. Nope, Everything's good. Plenty of room around everything. Check the mufflers. Space around there. They're feeling pretty rigid, to be honest. Room around there and around the tops, which I should have checked before I even put it together, but you know, yeah, that's great. It all works. Don't know how well you can see that, but that's the exhaust system for my sedan, and it has a fair amount more droop in it. It sits a lot lower than my wagon exhaust system. Maybe one day I'll build an exhaust system for this car, but not until it completely rusts out and fails. So before I install these manifold gaskets, I'm actually going to modify them because I'm going to have a hell of a time dropping these in place and getting the manifold or getting the extractors on. So what I've done is I've cut a slot there and cut a slot there. And the plan is to drop these gaskets in place while the bolts are still in for the outer two bolts for the headers, and hopefully I can get this gasket in place without pulling the manifold off entirely, because they are a headache to get lined up. And a set of gaskets with these cuts were available on eBay for $56 a set, but these ones are only $34 a set, so I went with the cheapest one possible and decided I'd modify them to suit my application. It went right in. Hopefully those bolt holes line up and I can get this snicked up and get these extractors welded before I run out of day. And gasket number 2 dropped right in as well. Time to get some bolts into these and see if they still match my flanges once the gaskets are in there. Well, it's late at night. I've welded the flanges for my extractors and now I'm in the process of reinstalling them because I want to spend tomorrow welding up the merge pipe section, and I'm going to try and get as much done tonight before I go to bed. And the extractors are actually going in pretty well. I'm using a bit of copper ease on the bolts and I've got the right manifold bolted in. Just need to tighten it up. I'm just going to run some more bolts through the passenger side and snick everything up, make sure my clearances are all good. And I've said it a few times, I'm going to say it again, things are going well. Future me will thank me for this, because one day when these bolts come out again, they will come out easily. So it's the next afternoon, and no welding took place today. In fact, I spent all the time I had in the shed remounting the linkages for the column shift, reinstalling the starter motor, and last of all, I spent all the rest of that time trying to get the power steering lines to work again. Now, they were going to be a problem, but I'm pleased to report I've managed to get the lines reinstalled without too much bending or removing, and there is clearance everywhere for everything. Now, one particular hurdle I faced was the angle for the pipe to go back into the power steering pump was too shallow to clear the headers, because they clear the stock manifolds no worries, but the headers stuck out extra distance, so I had to reroute that brand new line that I bought just for this project down the side of the shock tower and onto the fitting once the pump was removed. So the pump got removed, put the fitting onto it, reinstalled the pump, snicked the pump fitting right back up again, and now it all works. So I'm very happy about that, but it has taken me the whole rest of today. So maybe I'll get some welding done tomorrow afternoon after my family obligations for the morning are taken care of. So if we look down here through the jungle of hoses in this engine bay, the headers actually do clear the power steering lines now. It's taken a bit of shuffling around to get it all to work, but the headers are installed. If we look around the driver's side, it actually worked pretty damn well because there's not really much going on this side. Headers went straight in next to the power steering rack, power steering box. Didn't interfere with the linkages at all. So the old guy I bought these headers off in Redcliffe was good for his word. They do indeed suit a column change automatic air and steer car. So, good result. With the flanges welded and the manifold gaskets installed, I still have the same amount of clearance down here underneath the car around the transmission subframe. So everything is good there, as we can see from this shot. The linkages have loads of space between the headers and the linkages. The only thing I'm really concerned about are the lines for the transmission cooler, because they're shithouse. I don't know who put these in, but they did a hash job of them. And if this thing gets any professional attention anytime soon, it's going to be put a new transmission cooler in and run some new lines, because I'm not really satisfied with the higgledy-piggledy manner that these ones have been installed. And there's a whole bunch of extra line up the front underneath the radiator. I don't know what's the go with any of that, but it's wrong, and it'll need to be taken care of at some point. But as long as transmission fluid keeps pumping through them, I'm going to use them until the car's got a roadworthy, unless of course the roadworthy is failed by those poorly mounted lines. So things are looking good. So hopefully tomorrow I can weld all this up. I'm going to start at the back and work my way forward, because this flange here and these joins are going to lead to a lot of shifting and moving. So I'll weld all the easy stuff first, and I'll leave this bit till last. Probably going to weld them into the car, as much as I can, and hopefully they don't distort too much. But this is where the action's going to be, I'm afraid. This end I expect will be easy. I'm going to weld a bracket between the two pipes so that I can't move too much, and then I'm going to splooge it all, because you know that's what muffler people do. They splooge their welds. They don't do professional work. Okay, I can't put it off anymore. It's 1 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon and I need to start welding, because once I've done the welding for the merge pipe section, I can bolt this exhaust up and work on the back section, which I may or may not just use a pair of dumpers from the mufflers straight onto the ground and then just go done enough. Or I might try and weld those mandrel vent rear sections on and get it out to the back of the car. Well, I've been saying that out loud. Now that I think about it, what I think I'll do is I will work on those mandrel vent sections and see how they're going to sit and what I have to chop up. And if all gets too difficult, I'll cut a section and put some dumpers off those pipes and just leave it at that, because it's going to be a while before the car gets roadworthy. So really all it needs right now is an exhaust, so it's not straight off the headers. So that's where we'll go with that. So there is my merge pipe exhaust all welded up. I initially welded up as much as I could under the car because it was bolted into position, and then I finished off all the welds up here on the sawhorses so I could get right up close and personal to every bit of the welding job. And it's not pretty, but I have been very judicious about sealing any holes. As I say that, I look at that and go, I might throw some more weld in that gap, but I'm reasonably satisfied with the way that's all turned out. Hopefully it still fits into the car, because a fair bit of welding went on at this end outside the car, and it remains to be seen whether I'm going to have to cut that and redo it again. But once it cools down a bit, I will put it in and we'll see if it bolts up. Well, good news. The headers bolt up to the flanges and there doesn't appear to be much in the way of warpage. The flanges still bolt flush with that gasket sandwiched tightly in the middle So, time to move on to the back end of the car, where the exhaust outputs still need to be finessed. I told you I'd cut this exhaust system up if I needed to, and let's see if it fits. Alright, final draft for the left side of my exhaust system. It's going to be a side pipe. I'm not entirely sold on how I'm going to terminate this end of the exhaust jet. It's sticking out the side at this stage, but I'm going to leave my options open by welding this end and leaving... Actually, I'm going to weld the whole lot, because I've got to weld the hanger on, and it's going to go right on that joint there. So again, I've run out of day, but there are the pipes going over the diff, and I've opted for the side exit over there, just poking out underneath the rear quarter. These pipes are a slip joint fit, so hopefully I'll be able to pull those in and out. I'm not really 100% on this because the clearance over the diff isn't as good as I hoped it would be, and at this stage I'm just over lying on the ground in the middle of winter doing this work, so as long as it sits here in the garage it'll be fine. I've got an exhaust hanger on the right bank of the exhaust system, but the left bank, which has never had an exhaust pipe run through there before, I need to get more creative about how I'm going to get that pipe to fit, so the axle stand will stay there for the time being. So in summary, things are moving forward. Might not have a hanger for that pipe there, but that won't stop the startup. I just need to sort out a few things before I can try and start this car up, which I'm going to get on to next. Here is my cheeky wee side exit. As you can see under the car, I've got two of them going on, and it's actually worked out pretty well. I'm endeavouring to keep this as tucked up as possible because I really don't want any of this scraping on the ground. My sedan's exhaust system has been smashed over the years from low approaches and low departure angles, and I want this to be nice and tucked up considering it overhangs a whole lot more than the sedan does. So only a test drive will tell how that goes. So in other startup news, I currently have no radiator. The good news is it can be repaired, so I'm going to get to enjoy my copper and brass Adrad radiator once it comes back from the repair shop, which is obviously not going to happen before the end of this video. So I will do a startup, it just won't be for very long. And there's one other problem I've stumbled across. I haven't reconnected my power steering at the steering box end. So I need to find a piece of hose that's going to help me do that. And then hopefully at least startup time. But not tonight because it's 10:15 in the evening and I need to wrap this all up. Seems like months ago now I actually cut that hose so I could move the pipe out of the way to get the headers in. The problem now is I have to figure out how to get that hose back onto that fitting and keep that fitting from sticking out into the engine bay. So what I might do is just put a piece of hose on that and just curl it around on top of the steering box and reconnect it to the hose so they don't actually have to line up. I just need the hose to connect to both ends, do a little loop, and then the return line to the power steering pump will be alive again. On a more positive note, I've replaced my old crusty chrome fuel rail with a matte black Aeroflow item of exactly the same design, and hopefully this identical item doesn't leak like a sieve like this one does. This one used to work if you just finagled it right and stuck your tongue out in the right direction, and then I put it into this car and I couldn't get it to work at all. But now that I look at it like this, it's actually quite bent out of whack. These two fittings don't line up at all. And I've been very careful not to mutilate that one, sticking it in, so hopefully it's still straight and it doesn't leak. Okay, hose pipe modification has been done. Got a nice little piece of semi-high pressure oil hose line doing the job there, and that solution will work just fine for me. Time to fire the car up. Bit smoky. Must be all that power steering fluid I spilled yesterday. That was surprisingly quiet. It's literally got 2 redback mufflers in it, and that's it. And I've looked down those pipes and they are straight through pipes. So, not very loud. Well, my wife will be pleased. She's not really a big fan of the loud cars, although I am. But, job done. It's running. No fluids have poured out of it. Doesn't have a radiator right now, but we'll get to that. No fuel has come out of the fuel rail. Hooray! So summary time for episode 30 of Missile Industries' Krusty Wagon project. There you have it. It runs. Not for long, not very loud, not very Cleveland-like, to be honest. It surprised me how quiet it was. Maybe there's too many bends in the exhaust system. Maybe those mufflers I put under the car do too much muffling. Maybe I should have just dropped some dumpers out of the boxes in front of the diff for that authentic chunky sound. But as far as I'm concerned, mission accomplished. It has an exhaust on it. Sounds so sensible, despite the fact it has headers on it. So, good. Let's just wrap this up. And that way I can move on to other good things. Sign off this whole project from manifold gaskets right to exhaust tips cost me $701.90. Now the majority of that was the extractors, which I paid $300 for, and then there was an assortment of brackets, gaskets, and flanges to make that Commodore exhaust system all work, and finally the 2 over the diff pipes that I got from Ipswich, which I ended up cutting to pieces and re-welding to improve my ground clearance. So my initial exploits into the cost of this were going to be about $550 for a new set of headers to suit the car, plus whatever it would have cost for the bits and bobs to build the system myself. So no idea how much it cost to pay somebody else to do this job, but $700 doesn't sound like a bad job for a full twin system right back to the car, including extractors and merge pipe.